In the narrow, crowded streets of Manila, a soft melody floated through the evening air, rising above the sound of tricycles and street vendors calling out their prices. The source was a boy named Liam Santos, a 13-year-old with a cracked, weathered violin that looked almost as old as the city itself. His father had once played that very instrument before passing away 2 years earlier, leaving behind nothing but music and memories. Every evening, Liam stood under the flickering streetlight near the corner bakery, his small hands trembling slightly as he lifted the bow. The sound wasn't perfect, but it was real, raw, emotional, and full of the longing that only a child who had known loss could express. His mother watched from a window nearby, praying silently that one day, his gift would lead him to a better life. The people who walked by often stopped to listen. Some smiled, others wiped away a tear, and many dropped coins into the old violin case at his feet. Yet Liam didn't care about the coins. What he truly wanted was for someone, somewhere, to hear his heart through the strings. One night, a foreign tourist stood in the crowd, recording Liam's performance on his phone. The boy was playing, "Nearer My God to Thee," his father's favorite hymn. His bow moved slowly at first, then faster, as though he were reaching for heaven itself. The tourist felt chills run down his spine and posted the video online with the caption, "This boy's music will touch your soul." Within days, the video spread like wildfire. Millions watched the little Filipino boy with the broken violin pour his heart into a song of faith. Messages of encouragement poured in from all over the world. One morning, while Liam helped his mother prepare breakfast, a call came from a woman with an American accent. She was a talent scout for America's Got Talent, and she wanted Liam to audition. The boy froze, unable to believe what he'd just heard. His mother began to cry, clutching him tightly. Within a week, their small house buzzed with excitement. Local news covered his story, neighbors brought gifts, and strangers offered donations for travel. When Liam finally boarded the plane to Los Angeles, he pressed his hand against the window, whispering, "This is for you, Papa." When he arrived in America, the city lights overwhelmed him. Everything was bigger, louder, and brighter than the world he had left behind. On the day of his audition, Liam wore his father's old white shirt, neatly ironed by his mother before they left home. Backstage, he could hear the crowd cheering for other acts, and his heart pounded like a drum. When his turn came, he stepped onto the stage, clutching his violin. The judges, Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel, watched him curiously. Simon leaned forward, his expression calm but serious. "What's your name?" he asked. "My name is Liam Santos," the boy replied softly. "And where are you from?" "I'm from the Philippines, sir." Simon smiled slightly. "What are you going to perform?" Liam took a breath. "I'll be playing, 'Nearer My God to Thee.' It was my father's song before he passed away." A hush fell over the theater as Liam raised his bow. The first note came out like a whisper, trembling with emotion. Slowly, the melody built into something hauntingly beautiful. The crowd grew silent, mesmerized. Every stroke of the bow seemed to tell a story, of love, loss, and faith that refused to die. When the final note faded, the entire room stood still. Simon's eyes glistened with tears as he leaned back in his chair, unable to speak for a moment. Then he whispered, "That was divine." The audience rose to its feet, cheering wildly. Simon reached over and slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down as Liam stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. He had done it. He had turned pain into music and silence into applause. As he looked up toward the golden light falling from the ceiling, he felt his father there with him, smiling from somewhere above. The days after the golden buzzer felt like a dream for Liam. His face appeared on television, newspapers, and countless social media posts. The world called him the miracle violinist from Manila. Fans sent letters and gifts, while others shared their own stories of hope and loss, inspired by his courage. But behind the lights and fame, Liam felt the growing weight of expectations pressing on his young shoulders. Every rehearsal seemed harder, every performance scarier, because now people weren't just watching, they were waiting for something divine again. He didn't want to disappoint them, or Simon, or his father's memory. Late at night, after interviews and practice, he would sit alone in his hotel room, looking at the old violin and whispering prayers in Tagalog, asking God to help him stay strong. One evening, while everyone else was asleep, Liam received a video call from his mother back home. Her face appeared on the screen, tired but proud. "Don't be afraid, Anik," she said gently. "Play with your heart, not for the cameras." That night, he began working on a new piece, a song he would write himself, something that told his story through music. He wanted it to capture the sadness of losing his father and the faith that kept him going. He called it, "The Song of Heaven." It was a melody built on soft, slow notes that rose into bright, emotional highs, like a prayer rising from earth to the stars. His mentor, a kind music coach assigned by the show, heard him practicing one morning and froze by the door. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "Where did you learn that?" Liam smiled shyly. "I didn't. It just came from here," he said, placing a hand over his heart. Over the next few weeks, he refined the piece, combining it with parts of "Nearer My God to Thee," the song that had changed his life. It became a bridge between who he was and who he wanted to be. By the time the semi-finals arrived, he was ready. As the stage lights dimmed for his performance, the audience grew silent. Liam stood in the center, dressed in a simple black suit, holding the same old violin that carried his father's memory. The judges smiled encouragingly, and Simon gave a small nod. Liam closed his eyes and began to play. The first note drifted through the air like a whisper of light. Slowly, the melody built into a wave of emotion, soft, powerful, and pure. His bow moved gracefully, as if guided by an unseen hand. The audience leaned forward, completely entranced. The song carried both pain and hope, like a conversation between heaven and earth. As the music swelled, Liam's memories flooded back, the nights playing on Manila's streets, his mother's prayers, the sound of his father's laughter. He poured it all into the violin, each note trembling with meaning. When the final high note faded into silence, the crowd stayed frozen for a moment. Then came the roar of applause. People stood, shouting his name, some crying openly. Simon Cowell pressed his hand to his heart, visibly emotional. "Liam," he said softly, his voice breaking slightly, "I've been on this show for years, but that was something from heaven." The other judges agreed, praising his originality and soul. The cameras zoomed in on Liam's tear-streaked face as he bowed humbly. Backstage, he was greeted by his mentor, who wrapped him in a tight hug. "You did it, Liam," she whispered. "You didn't just play the violin, you told your story." That night, clips of his performance flooded the internet again. People across the world commented that they felt peace and faith just by hearing him play. Some said it reminded them of their own lost loved ones. Liam scrolled through the messages quietly, overwhelmed but grateful. When Simon met him after the show, he smiled and said, "You've already won hearts, Liam. Whatever happens next, remember, music like yours never fades." The boy nodded, holding his violin close. For the first time, he felt like his father's song had truly reached the stars. The night of the finals arrived faster than Liam could believe. The theater was packed, cameras flashed from every angle, and millions of people around the world waited to see the little Filipino boy who had made Simon Cowell cry. Backstage, Liam sat quietly with his violin on his lap, breathing deeply to calm the storm of nerves swirling inside him. Around him, other contestants laughed, prayed, or rehearsed lines, but he stayed still, whispering to himself, "Play for Papa." His mother's voice echoed in his memory from a call earlier that day. She had said softly, "Don't play to win, Anik. Play to thank God for what He's already given you." Those words stayed in his heart as the stage manager called his name. As the lights dimmed, the giant screen behind him showed a short video about his journey, from playing on the streets of Manila to standing under the golden buzzer's rain of gold. When the video faded, a single spotlight found him at center stage. He lifted his violin and closed his eyes. This time, he wasn't performing a cover or even his semi-finals piece. He had written something entirely new, blending Filipino folk rhythms with a soft, soaring classical arrangement. It was a melody that carried the heartbeat of his homeland, mixed with the sadness and hope that defined his story. The first notes came out like a whisper, trembling with emotion, then grew into a powerful harmony that filled every corner of the theater. The judges leaned forward, speechless. The audience sat in complete silence, drawn into the sound. Each movement of his bow seemed to paint pictures in the air: the streets of Manila, the flickering streetlight where he once played, the face of his father smiling proudly. When the melody reached its peak, Liam looked upward, and the sound seemed to rise like a prayer. He could feel tears falling down his cheeks, but he didn't stop. When the final note faded into the air, the silence that followed was sacred. Then, suddenly, the entire audience erupted in applause, shouting his name again and again. Simon Cowell stood slowly, wiping his eyes. "You've shown the world what real music means," he said softly. "It's not about fame or perfection. It's about soul." As confetti rained down again, Liam bowed deeply, overwhelmed. He didn't win first place that night, the trophy went to another performer, but it didn't matter. His story had already won hearts across the world. When the show ended, he was greeted backstage by Simon, who placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Liam, you don't need a trophy. You've already made history." The young violinist smiled shyly and whispered, "Thank you, sir. I just wanted my father to hear me." Simon smiled back, his eyes full of emotion. "I think he did." Months later, Liam returned to the Philippines. The airport was packed with fans, journalists, and children holding handmade signs that read, "Welcome home, our angel violinist." He hugged his mother tightly as tears rolled down both their faces. Fame didn't change him. Instead of chasing spotlight after spotlight, he used his newfound fame to help others. With the money he earned from performances and donations, he opened a small music school in Manila. It stood on the very street where he once played for coins. He named it, "My Father's Song." Inside, dozens of children from poor families learned to play instruments for free. Liam donated violins, guitars, and flutes, teaching the kids that music wasn't about fame but about faith and love. Every evening, he would sit among his students, helping them tune their violins, laughing as they made mistakes, just as he once had. Sometimes, he played, "Nearer My God to Thee," and told them how that one song had changed his life. Years later, at a local concert, a little girl from his school stepped onto the stage and performed the same hymn before a crowd of hundreds. As her bow moved across the strings, Liam stood among the audience, his heart full. Tears filled his eyes again, but this time they were tears of joy. The melody that once began under a broken streetlight in Manila now echoed through generations. He looked up at the sky, whispering, "We did it, Papa." The music drifted upward, carrying a promise that love, faith, and music would always find their way home.